Hi, and welcome back to Jen and Dan's Natural Healing with Plants, the go-to podcast for holistic health seekers looking to harness the power of nature for health and healing. I'm Jen. I'm a passionate health educator, a whole food, plant-based culinary coach, and master herbalist. And I'm here with Dan, an exercise specialist and wonderful master herbalist. Together, we dive into the world of natural healing, bringing you a wealth of knowledge and practical advice, and we draw from both traditional wisdom and modern science with herbs and foods to help you achieve optimal health. So today we are exploring vascular dementia. This is the second most common type of dementia after Alzheimer's. And unlike Alzheimer's, which is linked more with plaques, tangles in the brain, known as type 3 diabetes, vascular dementia is caused by reduced blood flow to the brain, which could also be caused by diabetes, actually. But it's basically a circulation issue. So, vascular being through the veins, that is what is leading to this dementia. And Dan is an expert in circulation and heart health. And so I'm so glad that we are talking about this today. So, where should we begin with this, Dan?
Well, we should begin with, of course, dementia seems to be on the rise,
Yes.
and vascular dementia accounts for 90% of cases. If you look at statistics, 90%. And why is that? Well, because heart disease is still very, very prevalent in the population, unfortunately. But the good news is heart disease can be prevented, and if you already have heart disease, you can improve it.
Very true. Yeah. So is heart disease still the number one killer of men and women?
It's up there. It may be number one. It could be number two. I don't know, but is it heart disease and then cancer? Is that the top of the
I
list
think so.
now?
I'm gonna look it up. Is
Uh,
yes. All right, we'll see what it says. While I'm looking that up. Yes, and so the brain runs on oxygen and it receives nutrients from the blood. Those nutrients have to get there through our blood vessels. And if there's any damaging or something's blocked, then our brain doesn't get what it needs, which leads to memory problems, confusion, and even personality changes. And so it's
oh yeah.
interesting because I think there's several reasons why we could have brain dysfunction, but in most, it has to be mostly just circulation, things getting up there. Like, this is a little bit off topic, but do you know why, if someone has a urinary tract infection, why does that affect their memory?
You know, it's a really good question. I don't know if I've ever asked that question before. I think if I had to guess,
Mm,
maybe the bacteria is doing some can actually cross the blood-brain barrier. I don't know.
maybe
I mean,
so.
if it did, you'd think you would die, but it is strange because my wife's grandmother, when she was still living, she had this all of a sudden one day she was acting really strange and losing her memory. Turns out she has severe UTI, and it's very common in older people.
Yeah, I was thinking about that with my grandmother, and then someone else I was talking to, their mother-in-law. The same thing. It was like, wait, when they start acting weird and their memory's off, then usually we do need to look for a UTI. Anyway, so we think there's something going on with the brain, which it is. Something's going
Yeah.
on with their brain, but look for UTI first. Anyways, that was a little bit off topic, but I did look it up. Heart disease is still the number one killer of both men and women worldwide. It accounts for 1/3 of all deaths globally, making it the leading cause of death across both genders. In the United States as well, heart disease is the leading cause of death, responsible for more deaths than all forms of cancer and accidental deaths combined.
And
Wow.
see, this is it's a tragedy because we have the science now showing that heart disease is largely preventable through exercise and the right nutrition. And heart disease, like I'm glad we're talking about dementia today, vascular dementia, because a lot of people don't even know that if you have heart disease, it can lead to things like dementia. It can lead to things like macular degeneration, back problems. Because I tell people the key to good health, one of the main keys is proper blood circulation. That's the way your body feeds its organs and cells. If you're not getting it, tissues start to die.
Right. Yeah. So I know a lot of people all have issues with even walking, pain in the legs, walking, so many different things
Oh yeah.
related to that. Yes. Neuropathies. Yeah. So
We know
much.
actually causes spinal degeneration because the blood supply to the spinal disc and the vertebrae gets diminished, and so it starts to crumble because it's not getting the nutrition. It even causes back problems. It's crazy.
Wow, that is crazy. So let's talk about some of the signs that you should look for if you are suspecting vascular dementia. So the first one is trouble with memory or concentration. Well, that can be related to several different things. So anytime you see trouble with memory or concentration, don't immediately think heart disease, though heart disease is highly likely. There could be other things like I mentioned the UTI earlier. UTI, some autoimmune diseases, things like that. Those can also affect trouble with memory and concentration. Even if you're having blood sugar balancing problems, that can affect memory and concentration. So you have to look at symptoms in combination with other things, not just one symptom. But it could be trouble with planning and organizing, especially if it's somebody who has always been on the ball about planning things and organizing things. They just like putting things together and planning, and then all of a sudden they're confused and are having trouble doing that, then that can be a good sign. Or mood changes and irritability. That's a huge one. I know a lot of people, their personality will completely change when they're having this, and slowed thinking as well. So if it's someone who's usually really sharp, then all of a sudden, they're not sharp as much. They are having trouble walking. Maybe they even have some balance issues.
Glad you brought that up because I've seen this in people that was close to the mood changes and irritability. Like,
Right.
if you ever been around someone with dementia, I really believe that we all should be more educated on signs of dementia, especially for our loved ones. I had a close family member. She just started acting strange all of a sudden, like she wasn't cleaning her house anymore. And she would say things that were just rude. I'm like, what is going on here? Turns out she has severe dementia. And I didn't put it together until we had to take her to the hospital one day because she was having other health problems.
Right.
And it turns out she had terrible dementia. And I was like, man.
Yeah.
So,
And, it's funny that you say that because it's some other people that I know in my family and outside my family, the same thing. It was someone who was like a super neat freak, and all of a sudden her house was really messy. Like she just wasn't cleaning at all, and really grumpy too. So that's interesting. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. A lot of times vascular dementia can come after a stroke or a series of mini strokes. Sometimes we don't even know someone's having mini strokes. Maybe they're just having some strange episodes going on. But it can also creep in really slowly. It could be related to long-term high blood pressure. Like I mentioned earlier, diabetes. Diabetes is strongly connected to heart disease and vascular dementia, and even atherosclerosis.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I knew another person very, very close to me that had a stroke. He was fine.
Mm,
He had a stroke, and probably a year or two. He was okay after the stroke for maybe a year or two,
mm,
but then I started noticing changes, and
yeah,
then I took him to the doctor, and on the scan, it found that he had had multiple mini strokes,
yeah,
and his dementia got really bad. And right now he's in a home, and you could tell though with him. Every time he have a mini stroke, he would act differently. I remember at one point he had trouble eating. I remember it was last Christmas actually. We were at dinner and we had to help feed him. I'm like, what is going on?
right.
And we were at the gym one day and he actually fell down. So
Another sign.
anyway, it's
Yeah,
heartbreaking. But the good news is today we're going to talk about some of the things that we can do
yeah,
that can reduce our risk and our family's risk of developing dementia. So, and other things.
Yeah, we're not going to be all doom and gloom. I do want to talk about a couple more little things though,
Yes,
like the risk
yes,
factors. So the risk factors are really the same things we talk about with heart disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, smoking, obesity, which is very, we do need to talk about that on an episode, and lack
yes.
of exercise, immobility. You have to be moving your body. But I want to talk about obesity on another episode because there's our normal, like the average person in the United States is overweight. Over 30% are obese. And so it's beginning to be more normal to see people who are overweight and obese. And so once the average person is overweight, we think that that is a healthy size, and it's not. And I'm not fat shaming. It's not judging someone based on their size. Our bodies are not made to be that large. And so the larger the body is, the harder it is to pump that blood through to all the areas and get the nutrients to all the different places where it is needed. And we start having trouble with our whole metabolic health. Anyway, we'll save that for another discussion, but it's so important to get body weight under control.
I totally agree. It strains every organ. If you're overweight, your heart's under more stress, your kidneys, your liver, everything. It's
Yes.
going to shorten your lifespan. I mean, it's not about vanity. It's about we're thinking about long-term health here. That's
Yes.
what we do. That's why we do this. What we do.
Yes. And when we do things to protect the body, protect the brain, protect the heart, they work together. So if we're focusing on foods and herbs today, like we're talking about, to protect our blood vessels in the heart, we're also protecting the blood vessels in the brain. We're also protecting the blood vessels in the kidneys, all throughout the body, in the liver. And so we have to really pay attention, because one thing affects, like you go to the doctor, I go to a cardiologist, he's not going to ask you about your kidney health and your brain health. He only knows about your heart. And so he's focusing on your heart and taking care of your heart, but we're neglecting these other organs. We have to look at the whole picture, which is what we're all about. The School of Natural Healing, we're vitalists. We look at the entire body and how it all works together. And functional medicine doctors are the same way. But something that is important in all of this to help with the blood vessels and the body is nitric oxide, or you may see it as NO. It's a molecule in our body. Our body makes it naturally, and it can also play a huge role in vascular dementia. We want to make sure we're getting enough. Nitric oxide helps to regulate the blood vessel dilation. They need to expand, and without enough blood flow to the brain, then we have problems here. So we need to make sure we're opening up those blood vessels. If we're not getting that nitric oxide, we're getting less oxygen, less nutrient delivery, and that increases our risks for cognitive decline. So we want to definitely pay attention to that. And there are foods and herbs that can help us with that.
Also, point out that the nitric oxide production does, when we get older, our body's less able to make it on its own. So that's where the lifestyle changes come in play here.
Yes,
So,
yes, yes. And we want to watch out for, we have to have a balance. So nitric oxide can also come from inflammatory pathways. Like I said, we make it ourselves. And so that can be toxic to neurons. And so we have to make sure we're balancing things. So we want nitric oxide um, to come from plants and foods that our body can process and eliminate
okay.
and use appropriately. We don't want to be taking pills and things like that that changes the other systems in our body. We want to work with the body naturally, like we do in the School of Natural Healing. And so my go-tos are colorful foods, beets, the beautiful red color in beets, or even yellow beets, arugula, spinach, those really dark leafy greens are nitrate rich, and they boost those nitric oxide levels naturally. Citrus, pomegranate is a huge one. A lot of people even put like pomegranate powder in smoothies and things like that. So that can help and improve bioavailability. And then we even have some herbs that can help with that too. And we'll get into all the herbs. So to protect your brain, think about color. My number 2 rule is eat the rainbow. If you haven't listened to another episode, my number one rule is read the ingredients. Always read the ingredients. Number two is eat the rainbow. And then think about plants too. So we're all about eating the plants, but eating a smoothie bowl made with beets and bright colored berries, blackberries especially, having a leafy salad with all the different colors on top. Those things can be really helpful for boosting nitric oxide.
Yes, and there's other things. Of course, we're about to talk about herbs, but I like how you pointed out we don't want to force anything. We want to use foods that are gentle, our body recognizes, so we produce just the right amount of nitric oxide, not too much. And the thing is, we're having trouble with your blood pressure right now. A lot of these foods, especially beets, have been shown to lower blood pressure up to 10 points just by drinking beet juice, or you can even take, beets in capsule form. I had a client that was having blood pressure problems. I told him about beetroot capsules and some of Dr. Christopher's formulas we're going to talk about, and his blood pressure dropped 30 points. And that's all he did.
And
And I
that's
don't recommend, yeah.
yes, yes. And so I want to talk about blood pressure a little bit. Like, so I hinted a little bit, like we don't want to use pharmaceuticals. Now, that being said, medical disclaimer, we are not doctors, we are not prescribing, diagnosing, treating, any of that. All the information that we're giving is for educational purposes. And so please do your own due diligence. Talk to your healthcare provider to see if these things are right for you. Don't stop medication, don't stop pharmaceuticals without working with someone who knows you and knows what your body needs. So that being said, because you know so much about the heart, I would like to hear a little bit about why pharmaceuticals, especially with high blood pressure. So we saw here that long-term high blood pressure can lead to vascular dementia. So we have a client who is on blood pressure medicine. Maybe they're on a low dose, but they're on it for years and years. What are the health implications of that?
Well, one thing that a lot of people they don't really like to hear it, but the truth is, if you're using a medication to lower your blood pressure, it's a band-aid approach. Your blood pressure may look better when you get it checked, but the disease process is still going on. There was a famous newscaster, I can't remember his name, but he was heavy. He was on blood pressure medication. He was on medication for his blood sugar. The doctor said, "All your numbers look great. You're going to live forever." Well, the guy dropped over from a heart attack
Right.
because they didn't say, "Hey, we're giving you these drugs, but it's actually your lifestyle that's causing all your health problems. So you probably have clogged arteries right now. You have too much fat in your bloodstream. Your heart's working hard because you're too heavy. The drugs aren't going to do anything for that. The only way you're going to be able to reverse these things is start to eat healthier. And if you eat healthier, the bloodstream, the fat will get lower in the bloodstream. Your arteries start to open back up. So the Band-Aid approach has not cured you. The disease process is still damaging your organs right now. And I
Yeah.
don't want to scare anybody, but that's the truth.
Well, that's what I was thinking too with statins and blood pressure pills, not high blood pressure pills, blood pressure pills. They cover up what's going on. And so whatever is causing you to have the high cholesterol or whatever is causing you to have the high blood pressure, that medication is not quote unquote fixing the problem for you. It's just changing your numbers, reducing things. Whatever is causing you to have that high blood pressure is still going on, but we're suppressing things. And so that's going on behind the scenes. And cholesterol is still, I mean, we're lowering the cholesterol, but whatever is causing that cholesterol to go up, it's usually inflammation. Just have inflammation going on in your body. And so you're seeing those numbers going, hey, it looks like I'm okay, when no, there's still something going on underneath the surface.
Yeah, the doctors they act like you're okay now because your blood pressure looks
And
good.
your numbers look good, right? And you may find, like Daniel was saying, if you eat lots of beets or beet pills or whatever, your blood pressure may drop And your doctor doesn't want you to do that. Your doctor doesn't want you to change things because then they have to change your medication. You have to be monitored a little more closely. So I always tell my clients who are making dietary changes, who are on medications, that if you are, especially if it's a blood pressure medication, make sure you are checking your blood pressure throughout the day because you may have to go back and get your medications adjusted. Most likely you will have to go and have it. If you experience any dizziness, something like that, you need to go off your meds. Now, I'm not telling you to go off your meds. Work with your healthcare provider, um, but just be mindful of that. We would rather you eat healthy and work with your doctor and go off those meds and be able to eat foods that help keep your blood pressure healthy and clear up those arteries than for you to stay on that medication and not do the things.
I want to point out too, there was a study out of UAB about 5 years ago that found if a person was on three or more hypertension drugs, they were more likely to have a stroke because of the drugs.
Wow, I have clients that are on that many.
And they're not going to tell you these things. And some of them may not even know about this, but this came out of UAB medicine over here in Birmingham. And of course, you don't hear it, that nobody talks about it because there is a money-making scheme here. The number one cause, the number one reason people go to the doctor is for high blood pressure.
Yeah, yeah,
And they say, oh, here you go, just take this pill, right?
and it brings it back down, but you still have something going on.
Because, like you were saying, there's a reason your blood pressure is high. Your body is very smart. You may have a blockage somewhere, and your body has increased your blood flow to get oxygen to the organs. And when they lower it too much, it cuts off that blood to maybe the brain or the heart, and then you can have an episode because the drugs is artificially deflating the blood pressure, and the body's doing it to keep you alive. So
Yeah, the body's
this,
amazing.
yeah, go ahead.
I'm just saying, yes, I totally agree. The body is totally amazing.
Yeah, we're never going to outsmart the body. The body is amazing. It knows what it's doing. And I think that some people tamper with it too much. Let's
Yes,
just
exactly. Tamper with it too much. Don't let the body do what it's naturally set up to do, which is what we
yeah.
believe in. Yes, yes. So let's get into some of the herbs and the plants because I know people love to hear about that. So
Oh
herbs
yeah.
and plants can play a huge role in supporting circulation, brain function, as well as all the functions of the body. And so tell us, what is your number one herb when we're talking about vascular health?
Well, it's definitely vascular health. We're gonna have to start with cayenne pepper, but when we're talking about blood to the brain like today's episode, we
Uh,
want to combine that cayenne pepper with a ginkgo biloba.
oh,
It
yeah.
increases the microcirculation in the brain. That's another problem we have as we get older. The
Mhm.
microcirculation gets to where it's not as good.
Right.
So we can take herbs to increase the microcirculation like ginkgo and cayenne pepper.
Mhm.
And ginkgo has been used traditionally to increase blood flow to the brain. It
Yeah.
opens up blood vessels and it reduces the blood viscosity, which is a problem too on a high fat diet and some of these drugs. Your blood actually can get kind of like it gets thicker, kind of like molasses. And if you're dehydrated, water is very important. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. Ginkgo's my first one.
Yeah, and I would say that ginkgo is not right for everyone. And so once again, working with a doctor to make sure that before you take some of these herbs, work with your doctor. Um, like if you are taking blood thinners, which a lot of people, if they're having heart disease, that can increase bleeding and bruising. If you're prone to seizures, that may not be right for you. And so just work with somebody, but that would definitely be number one up there. When I think of brain circulation, another one that I like is rosemary. Rosemary would be my second pick after ginkgo biloba.
Yes, excellent one. This actually a lot of good formulas actually combine ginkgo with rosemary, and they both are affect the brain.
Right. And you could even just drink a rosemary tea. Think about, so my background is I am a culinary coach. And so incorporating these herbs into our meals. So putting rosemary in soups, putting rosemary in, all kinds of things. You can make a vegan cheese and put rosemary in there. So they're very high in antioxidants, but it also helps with boosting circulation, really getting the blood to the brain as well. So that would be my second favorite for talking about brain circulation.
Then another good one is ginger. I mean, ginger, man. Have you ever taken a ginger shot where you juice ginger and just drink it?
Yes, yes.
Mm.
And oh my gosh, it's so good for so many different things. But if you just think about the warming effects of ginger, so if it's warming you, what's that doing with your blood?
Oh, yeah. It's increasing it, relaxes the arteries. Anything that relaxes the arteries, like we've been talking about, when your arteries relax, your blood pressure goes down because it's easier for the blood to go through the arteries. And ginger is another great one for that. Now, turmeric is another one. You hear about turmeric, I don't know, turmeric is like a very popular herb. There's over 300 studies on turmeric now. It can help prevent dementia. They actually in India, there's less dementia and Alzheimer's there, and they have linked it to their turmeric. They eat turmeric with almost every meal. They use it in their recipes. It also reduces inflammation in the body, and it helps promote circulation, and it helps maintain healthy blood vessels because Esselstyn always talks about don't do things that damage your endothelial lining. That's the lining in your arteries. When you do that, your circulation becomes a lot less healthy. So we want to do things that heal. You can heal the lining of your arteries. And it becomes, like he talks about, when you heal the endothelial lining, it becomes slick, the lining, so the blood can flow easy. That's what we're looking for here.
I love that. And I actually saw a reel of Dr. Esselstyn eating his breakfast bowl, making his breakfast bowl yesterday morning, and he did put lots of turmeric in his breakfast
Yes.
bowl. And his wife did too, and also put turmeric. A separate reel, but that it reminded me. Yes, turmeric is very important. Another one that I really love to think about when I'm thinking about blood vessels and relaxing is garlic. Garlic is very high in sulfur compounds, which help the blood vessels relax. And so if we think of our other sulfur-rich foods, once again, I'm the foodie. I think of onions and all of our brassicas. So our dark leafy greens. So it's a whole nother reason to eat those dark leafy greens. The darker, the better. Kale, collards, those really dark greens. If maybe you can't tolerate them, maybe you are a bitter taster, steaming them, right? Putting them in soups that makes them a little more milder. Eating other brassicas roasted. And so we don't think about like even radishes. Radishes, you can roast them. They don't have to be raw in a salad. Radishes, turnips. What else am I forgetting about that is a brassica from the ground? Anyway, there's
Uh,
tons of them,
yeah.
but all those are sulfur rich. Or you could even sprout your own like broccoli seeds and put them in smoothies where you can kind of hide them, or get a broccoli seed powder and put those in things. You don't want to overdo it because when we make a powder out of something, so I mentioned even pomegranate powder. I'm gonna go on a little tangent for just a second. If we make like a pomegranate powder or a broccoli seed, sprouted broccoli seed powder, something like that, think about how concentrated that is. If I were to grow a bunch of broccoli sprouts and then dehydrate them and then grind them to make a powder, how much would it take to make like a teaspoon of powder? It would take a lot. It would take an awful lot. If you think about if you cook down greens, like you throw in a giant container of spinach, put it in a pot and it disintegrates, right? Well, then if I dried that and powdered it, I'd probably have a tablespoon, that entire container. And so you have to think about how concentrated that is. So while it does have wonderful health components, we want to stick with whole foods as much as possible because while that is healthy, we can have this can be good, but there is such a thing as too much of a good thing. So if you already are depleted in other minerals, like if I was deficient in iodine and I'm eating a lot of sprouted broccoli seed powder, then that is going to enhance my deficiency of iodine and affect my metabolism and my thyroid and other things as well. And so stick to whole foods as much as possible. Sorry for that little tangent, but I just thought that was important.
That was really good advice. I like that. Very good. Because a lot of people are overloaded on some of these superfood powders and they're expensive. So you can
Right.
save some of that money and go to the supermarket. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. It was so they hear influencers and other people saying you can get a powder for this, you can get a powder for that. Hey, you can get all the vegetables you need today in just this powder.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
technically you could, but what all are you missing? You're not getting any of the fiber, and we don't. Whole nother subject, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, whole nother
But it
subject.
makes good sense. We always talk about keeping things in their whole form. That's what the body recognizes. And
Mhm.
I believe they'll give you a healthier body than just living on powder. I mean, I don't believe you can take, I've seen the the fruit powders and they claim it's as healthy as eating fruit. I mean, come on now. I don't buy it.
I don't buy it for anything. I don't buy it for anything. Yes. Yeah, I remember at one time people were selling them at work. Anyway, we're getting off topic. What's the next herb?
Well, the next one is one of my favorites, hawthorn.
I thought
And
you were
I've
going to
seen
say that for your first one
oh
when you said ginkgo biloba.
well, it's a hard one, it's a hard one. I mean, cayenne and hawthorn, two of my favorites, and then but Hawthorne, I've seen Hawthorne do amazing things for people. It actually strengthens and tones your blood vessels. It
Mhm.
actually strengthens your heart. It helps keep your arteries and your heart more elastic because as we get older, our heart and our blood vessels become stiffer, and this causes the blood pressure to rise. But good news, we can take herbs and eat the right way, and actually, it's been shown now we can actually reverse some of the stiffness of our arteries. And exercise is going to be part of it. But right now, we're talking about herbs. So hawthorn, it also helps dilate blood vessels and it supports your whole vascular system.
Yes. Yeah, and rich in flavonoids. And so
Yes.
antioxidants. Yes. And it's a bright red color. And it's also something, it's a food. So you can have it as an herb. So my husband, his family has very, very strong heart disease. We just had a fourth cousin with a massive heart attack and first degree cousin, right? And so this is something that he has every single day is hawthorn. I make sure that he has
Yes.
that every single day. And so, not as a powder, it's the berries. He'll have just a teaspoon of the berries in a tea, right? And so, we're not overdoing it, but we're making sure that those things are included in the diet.
Another one, go to cola.
Yes, that's one of my favorites. Go to cola. So, it's been traditionally used for clarity and mental stamina. It is in one of my autoimmune thyroid formulas, and it's also in kidney formulas because it can helps with microcirculation, which we think of microcirculation in the brain, but we also need microcirculation in those tiny little tubules in the kidneys. And so it's wonderful for circulation, leg circulation, and vascular tissue. And it's also one of those that's energizing without caffeine. So if I have clients who take Gotu Kola, it's also an adaptogen. Then I make sure they take it in the morning because it is very energizing. And so even though it doesn't have caffeine, you may be a little too energized to go to sleep at night. And so I do love Gotu Kola. So it helps with energy, stamina, microcirculation, and it's an adaptogen. And so that would be one of my favorites.
I know this thyme, thyme, I guess how I pronounce it. Thyme, that's how I pronounce it.
Yeah, time. Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's another herb. I think it's kind of a overlooked herb, but it has rosmarinic acid. This increases blood flow and lowers blood pressure by inhibiting certain enzymes in the body. It's also, a side note, it's a good antibacterial herb, actually.
Yes. Yeah, very antimicrobial,
Hmm.
antibacterial, antiviral. Yes, and it can lower blood pressure by inhibiting certain enzymes. So that one is also in a lot of my immune health formulas, especially
Yeah.
respiratory health and because it's so antiviral. But it's great because it's thyme. It can be in another one that can go in your soups, or you can make a sunflower seed tuna and put a little thyme in there. Or you could even put it in some hummus. And so it's one of those that's just really easy to sneak into different things that can also help with blood flow.
And parsley is another one that it helps lower blood pressure because it's actually a diuretic. It makes you urinate more. So it's kind of I remember Chris were talking about they had a girl that she was swelling because she was holding on to fluid,
Yeah.
and they would give her partially tea and I think even partially compresses, and it was able to get all the swelling out of her body. It's a very powerful diuretic.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that one too. And then motherwort is another one that my husband puts in his teas regularly. That one, so motherwort, it's also helpful in menopausal symptoms. And so anyone who's in premenopause and is having hot flashes or racing heart or anxiety, motherwort I think of as helping to regulate um, the heartbeat. A lot of times people can find it helpful in like AFib and stuff like that. But once again, if you have a diagnosis like that, then make sure you're working with a healthcare provider. But it's also it's not great tasting, and so we do pair it with other herbs. And so like we pair it with hawthorn and other herbs, and so that is one of those. But it's wonderful for regulating that heart rate as well.
Now let's talk about some of the Dr. Christopher formulas because I love his formulas. And for some people, they're not going to go buy single herbs and make teas and things. They're busy. So that's why, I mean, these formulas that he has put together, they have all the things we're talking about, and they're formulated by Dr. Christopher, and they work really good. The first one, I want the blood circulation formula. This formula is amazing. I've seen what it can do. It's I can't remember the herb. I know it's cayenne, and I know it's ginger. I can't remember all the herbs in it, but it works really well to lower your blood pressure, increase your circulation. And I remember David talking about it can help actually cleanse your arteries. I remember him saying that when I was in Utah because he had a woman that I think she was 70% blocked in an artery, and she went on a raw food plant-based diet and took this formula, and I think she reduced it down to 30% in about 6 months.
Yeah.
And I've seen this formula. Okay, I knew a guy, his feet were turning blue because his circulation was so bad. He started taking this with the hawthorn syrup, and the color came back in his feet.
Wow.
It was like magic. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
So I think everybody should be taking it. I take it just for extra protection, like because heart disease is so prevalent.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the herbs in there, number one, cayenne. Yeah,
Yes.
because that's going to be in his formula. But then the other ones that we mentioned as well. And so parsley root, we didn't say that about roots. So parsley leaves are very high in minerals, which is also really great. But the root is the one that is really helpful for as a diuretic. And most people on blood pressure medicines are also on diuretics,
Yeah.
which, oh my gosh, then the doctor tells you not to drink too much because that's why you need a diuretic because you have the swelling. Oh my gosh, we need water for blood flow. Our blood is made of water. And so, it pains me when doctors say things like that. Anyway, parsley root, ginger root, which we already mentioned, golden seal, and eleuthero and garlic. Those are also in that formula.
Awesome. And they're all really good for the heart. And I usually like to combine this if you're having memory problems. I will combine it with memory plus formula. He's got one for your memory. It's got gotu kola, ginkgo, and other nervine herbs, like herbs that relax your mind. Because I think that you know as well as I do, if you have a lot of anxiety, this will also affect your memory.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Which I think is why I have gotu kola in and motherwort in some of my autoimmune thyroid formulas. Because those of you who don't know, my history is Graves' disease, so it's not Hashimoto's. It is now because of. Please listen to my story, another podcast. But in Graves' disease, you have high anxiety, heart rate is totally out of whack, racing heart, and things like that. And so those are very involved in circulation and brain health as well. And so I love those for nervines for the heart, but also in those cases. I don't know where I was going with that.
Another thing I love about these formulas is they don't just mask symptoms like drugs do. They actually feed the tissues and they help restore them and they tone your tissues. They make things function better. Herbs are kind of like a tune-up. I like to say a tune-up for your organs.
Yes, they are. And like we said, we want you to go with the whole foods. Quit going with the powders. Um, don't rely on medications. Don't take supplements that will also mask symptoms. Work on healing, repairing, recovering. That's what we're all about, natural healing. And the one more food that we haven't mentioned is our omega-3s. And so you can take fish oil, and some people do genetically need something like fish oil. Get your genetics checked. Or adding in foods if you don't have to rely on that. Walnuts, flax seeds, chia seeds, hemp seeds, those are amazing for reducing inflammation in the blood vessels and supporting brain health. Those foods are wonderful for inflammation throughout the entire body, which when we have a condition like this, it is a systemic. And so it is inflammation throughout the whole body. But other things that help with omega-3s are ginkgo biloba, which we already mentioned, and gotu kola. And so we want to make sure that we are relying on those. And then the last thing is Dan's specialty. What's one more thing to help with vascular dementia?
You gotta move, you gotta exercise. Look, this week an article came out. It showed that women who got aerobically fit in middle age were 90% less likely to develop dementia in later life. This is huge. This should be like the huge motivator. I mean, if
Yes,
you ever seen somebody with dementia, it's very, very, very sad. So we should be doing everything that we can to reduce our risk. One reason exercise works is because what do we say? It increases blood circulation.
yes, yes, increases blood circulation. And then I said that was the last one, but I forgot about stress reduction. High
Uh,
high cortisol damages your blood vessels. If you are under a lot of stress, anytime you're stressed in traffic, stress, something going on at home, arguing with somebody, maybe you've had a recent death in the family, there's lots of stress. Anytime you're stressed like that, you increase blood sugar to the blood because your body thinks you're in danger. That sugar, think of sugar crystals. Those little crystals are damaging your blood vessels. And if that happens over time, that can really be a serious issue. So making sure that you are finding time throughout the day, not just one time a day, to just slow down. Slow down, maybe put your hands over your heart, take a couple deep breaths. And if you need little signals to remind you to do that, do it when you wake up in the morning, do it before you go to bed. So in the bed, in the morning and at night, and then before each meal. Some people say a blessing. So whatever you can do, anytime you can do it, just stop for a minute and relax to lower that cholesterol.
Very good advice because I think we're all under a lot of stress these days. And
Yes. Yes.
so, yeah, and deep breathing, you probably said that.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you put all these things together that we've talked about in this podcast today,
Mhm.
you're going to get healthy not only in your brain, your whole body gets healthy because we're not like a car. We are a whole system.
Yes.
Everything that we're doing for our brain is going to be good for our heart. It's going to be good for our liver, our kidneys, you name it.
Yes.
So, and it increases positivity. Everybody that I work with, pretty much everyone I've worked with, when they start to get healthier and start to do more things to make themselves healthy, they become more positive and happy. And
Yes.
that is big.
That's
Okay.
huge. Yes. I love that. I love that you ended on that as well. So if you agree or don't agree, please comment. We want to hear from you. You have other suggestions, something you want us to discuss. Please let us know. We love hearing from you. So thank you for joining us today on Natural Healing with Plants. If a loved one you're concerned about has issues with their brain or remembering things, then just help with nourishing their circulation, boosting, eating the rainbow to boost that health, right? Dark leafy greens, eating the rainbow, those are great tips. And then helping with stress and movement. So to work with either one of us, you can work with me at holisticgen.com. I spell holistic with a W, W-H-O WHOLISTICJEN.com, or you can go to danthenaturalman.com to find Dan. We're both on YouTube as well. And until next time, keep feeding your body and your brain with the power of plants.